The storm came on a Monday morning. Arif walked to the tea shop, as he always did. The air was cold, and his breath came out like small clouds. He rubbed his hands together as he walked. When he reached the bus stop, he saw that the shop was closed. The metal shutters were down, and there was a lock on them. This had never happened before. Haji Noor always opened the shop before anyone else was awake. He was proud of that. He said a man who opens his shop late does not deserve customers. Arif waited. He sat on the wooden bench outside the shop and watched the buses come and go. People looked at the closed shop and shook their heads. They wanted their morning tea. One man asked Arif what had happened, and Arif said he did not know. An hour passed, then 2 hours. Haji Noor did not come. Arif felt something cold in his stomach. It was not hunger. It was fear. He got up and walked to Haji Noor's house. It was a 10-minute walk from the bus stop. The house was bigger than Arif's house, but it was old too. The paint was peeling and the gate was rusty. Arif knocked on the gate. He waited. He knocked again. Then he heard footsteps and the gate opened. A young man stood there. He was about 25 years old, with a thin face and tired eyes. Arif had seen him a few times before. He was Haji Noor's nephew. His name was Farhan. He lived in the city and only came to the town sometimes. Farhan told Arif what had happened. Last night, Haji Noor had felt a pain in his chest. He could not breathe properly. Farhan had taken him to the hospital in the city. The doctors said Haji Noor's heart was weak. They said he needed to rest for many weeks, maybe months. They said he could not work or do anything that would make him tired. Farhan said the shop would stay closed until Haji Noor got better. He said he was sorry. He said he knew Arif depended on the job, but there was nothing he could do. Arif stood at the gate and listened. He nodded slowly. He asked about Haji Noor's health and said he would pray for him. Then he turned around and walked away. His feet felt heavy on the ground. Each step was harder than the one before. The cold wind hit his face, but he did not feel it. All he could feel was the weight of what had just happened. The shop was closed. His job was gone. The money was gone. And winter was coming. He walked for a long time that morning. He did not go home. He was not ready to face his mother. He was not ready to tell her that the one thing they could count on was now gone. He walked along the river. The water was gray and fast. It moved over the rocks with a sound like whispers. Arif sat on a big rock near the bank and put his head in his hands. For the first time in a long time, he felt like crying. But he did not cry. He had taught himself not to cry a long time ago. Crying did not bring his father back. Crying did not put food on the table. Crying was something he could not afford. He sat there for an hour thinking. He thought about what he could do. He could look for another job, but there were not many jobs in the town. The town was small and poor. Most young men left the town and went to the city to find work. Some of them worked in factories. Some of them drove rickshaws. Some of them did things that Arif did not want to think about. He did not want to leave the town. His mother needed him here. Saba needed him here. He had to find something in the town itself. He stood up and brushed the dirt from his clothes. He took a deep breath and started walking towards the vegetable market. The market was in the center of the town. It was a big open space with rows of stalls on both sides. Men sat behind piles of tomatoes and onions and potatoes. They shouted at the people walking by. The air smelled like fresh vegetables and dust and donkey dung. Arif walked up to the first stall and asked the man if he needed help. The man looked at him and shook his head. Arif went to the next stall. The same answer. He went to the next one and the next one. Most of them said no. Some of them did not even look at him. He felt invisible. He felt like he did not matter to anyone in the world. Then he came to a stall at the far end of the market. A fat man with a big black mustache was standing next to a truck. The truck was full of sacks of potatoes. The man was sweating, even in the cold weather. He was shouting at a boy, who was carrying the sacks too slowly. The boy was struggling under the weight. Arif walked up to the fat man, and said he could help carry the sacks. The man looked at him from head to toe. He asked Arif if he was strong enough. Arif said he was. The man pointed at the truck and told him to start. Arif climbed onto the truck and lifted the first sack onto his back. It was heavy, much heavier than he had expected. The rough cloth of the sack scratched his neck, and the weight pressed down on his spine. He carried it to the stall and dropped it. Then he went back for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. There were 40 sacks in total. By the time he finished, his back was screaming with pain. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His legs were shaking. But he had done it, all 40 sacks. The fat man looked at him and nodded. He reached into his pocket and took out some money. He held it out to Arif. Arif took it and looked at it. It was a small amount, less than what Haji Noor paid him for a whole week of work. For a moment, Arif felt anger rise in his chest. He had worked for 2 hours, carrying heavy sacks, and this was all he got. But then the anger went away. It was money. It was something. He put it in his pocket and said thank you. He went home that evening and gave the money to his mother. She looked at the small amount, and then she looked at her son. She saw the sweat stains on his shirt. She saw the way he was holding his back. She understood. She did not ask questions. She just took the money and started cooking dinner. That night, Arif could not sleep. He lay on his thin mattress and stared at the dark ceiling. He could hear his mother and sister breathing in the next room. The house was quiet, except for the wind outside. His mind was racing. He needed a plan. He couldn't just carry sacks every day. Some days there would be no sacks to carry. Some days no one would need him. He needed something more steady, something he could control. He thought about the market. He thought about the men who sold things. They had their own stalls. They had their own goods. They did not depend on anyone else for a job. But they had money to start with. They had money to buy goods and rent stalls. Arif had nothing. How could a boy with empty pockets become a seller in the market? He turned on his side and closed his eyes. The answer did not come that night. But the question stayed in his mind like a nail stuck in wood. It would not go away. And sometimes that is the first step towards finding an answer. You have to carry the question long enough until the answer finds you. The next morning, Arif went back to the market. He carried bags of onions for one man. He cleaned fish at another stall. The fish seller was a thin man with one eye. He showed Arif how to cut the fish and remove the insides. The smell was terrible, and Arif had to hold his breath many times. But he did the work, and the man paid him. It was a little more than what the fat man had paid him yesterday. Every day was different. Some days he made enough money to buy food for the family. Some days he came home with almost nothing. On those days his mother would make thin soup with whatever vegetables she had, and they would eat it with old bread. Nobody complained. They had learned a long time ago that complaining did not fill empty stomachs. Saba watched her brother come home tired and dirty every evening. She saw the cuts on his hands from the fish knives. She saw the bruises on his shoulders from the heavy sacks. She wanted to help, but Arif would not let her. One evening, she sat next to him while he was eating, and she said she wanted to stop school. She said she was old enough to work. She could help their mother with the washing. She could go to the market and help Arif. She said the school could wait. Arif put down his plate. He looked at his sister. His eyes were red from tiredness, but they were burning with something strong. He told her to never say that again. He told her that the whole reason he was working was so that she could keep going to school. He said she was going to become a doctor. He said he had made a promise to himself and to their father's memory, and he was not going to break it. His voice was not loud, but it was firm. It was the voice of someone who had made up his mind, and nothing in the world was going to change it. Saba looked at him, and tears ran down her face. She did not say anything more about stopping school after that night. 2 weeks passed like this. Arif went to the market every morning and looked for whatever work he could find. He carried things, he cleaned things, he loaded trucks, he swept floors. He did every job that no one else wanted to do. His body hurt all the time now. His shoulders were sore and his lower back had a dull pain that never went away. His hands were full of blisters and small cuts. At night he soaked his hands in warm water with salt. It stung badly, but his mother said it would help them heal faster. But something was happening inside Arif's mind during those 2 weeks. While his body was doing the hard work, his eyes and brain were doing a different kind of work. He was watching. He was learning. Every day at the market, he watched the sellers carefully. He noticed things that he had never noticed before. He noticed that the men who sold things at the market had different levels of success. Some of them had big stalls with many customers. Others sat behind small piles of goods and waited all day for someone to buy. Arif started to understand why. The successful sellers did certain things differently. They arranged their goods in neat piles. They called out to customers in a friendly way. They gave a little extra to the regular buyers. They kept their stalls clean. And most importantly, they sold things that people needed and wanted. He also noticed something about the market that nobody else seemed to notice. There was a corner near the main entrance that was always empty. No one had a stall there. It was just a dusty patch of ground between two walls. But every morning, hundreds of people walked past that corner on their way into the market. It was the busiest spot in the whole market, and nobody was using it. Arif looked at that corner, and something clicked in his mind. He did not know yet what he would do with it, but he knew that corner was important. One evening after work, he walked around the back of the market, where the sellers threw away their garbage. There were broken wooden boxes everywhere. Fruit boxes, vegetable crates. They were thrown in a big pile and left to rot. Arif looked at the boxes, and an idea started to form in his head. He picked up 4 boxes that were still in good shape. He carried them home and cleaned them. He fixed the broken parts with nails he found in his mother's kitchen drawer. He stacked them together, and they made a small table. It was not pretty, but it was strong enough to hold things. The next morning he took the boxes to the market early, before most sellers arrived. He set them up in that empty corner near the entrance. Then he sat down and thought. He had a spot, he had a table, but he had nothing to sell. He reached into his pocket and counted his money. Just a few notes and some coins. Not enough to buy vegetables or fruit to sell. Those things cost too much to start with. He needed something cheap, something that did not cost much to make, but that people would want to buy. He walked around the market, thinking. He passed the spice stalls, and the sweet shops and the bread sellers. Then he passed an old woman who was selling raw peanuts from a big sack. The peanuts were cheap, very cheap. A small bag of raw peanuts cost almost nothing. And Arif knew that roasted peanuts were something everyone loved. In winter especially, people loved to eat hot roasted peanuts. They warmed your hands and filled your stomach, and they tasted good. He bought a small bag of raw peanuts from the old woman. He took them home and asked his mother if they had an old pan he could use. Zainab looked at him with curious eyes, but she gave him an old iron pan that she did not use anymore. Arif made a small fire in the back of the house using dry sticks and leaves. He put the pan on the fire and poured the peanuts in. He shook the pan slowly over the fire, the way he had seen nut sellers do in the city. The peanuts started to roast. They cracked and popped, and a wonderful smell filled the air. Saba came out and asked what he was doing. He told her he was starting a business. She laughed and asked if he was serious. He said he had never been more serious about anything in his life. He roasted the peanuts until they were golden brown. Then he added a little salt and some red chili powder that his mother had in the kitchen. He mixed everything together and tasted one. It was good. It was really good. The salt and the spice and the crunch all came together in a way that made him want to eat another one immediately. He smiled for the first time in weeks. The next morning, he woke up before dawn. He made small cones out of old newspaper and filled each one with a handful of peanuts. He put all the cones in a big cloth bag and went to the market. He set up his wooden box table in the empty corner and arranged the cones on top. Then he waited. The first hour was terrible. People walked past him without looking. Some people looked at his little setup and kept walking. Arif felt his heart sinking with every person who passed. He started to think that this was a stupid idea. Who was going to buy peanuts from a boy with a table made of old boxes? He almost packed up and left. But then a man stopped. He was an old man with a walking stick. He looked at the peanuts and asked how much. Arif told him the price. It was very low. The old man smiled and said that was the cheapest thing in the whole market. He bought one cone. He opened it and ate a peanut. Then he ate another one. Then he stopped and looked at Arif. He said the spice was just right. He bought another cone for his wife. Then he walked away. That first sale gave Arif a feeling he had never felt before. It was not just about the money, although the money was important. It was about something bigger. It was the feeling that he had made something with his own hands, and someone had wanted it. Someone had chosen to give him money for something he had created. It was a feeling of power. Not the power of a big man or a rich man. It was the power of a person who can stand on his own feet. After the old man, a woman bought 2 cones for her children. Then a group of boys from the school bought some. By the end of the morning, Arif had sold 12 cones. He counted the money carefully. After taking out the cost of the raw peanuts and the newspaper, he had a small profit. It was not a lot, but it was his. He had earned it not by carrying someone else's sacks or cleaning someone else's fish. He had earned it by selling something that he had made himself. He went home that day feeling different. His steps were lighter. His back still hurt, and his hands were still rough. But inside, he felt something new. He felt hope. Not the weak kind of hope that disappears when things get hard. This was a strong kind of hope. The kind that grows when you see proof that your work can lead to something. That evening he sat with his mother and sister and told them everything. He told them about the corner in the market. He told them about the wooden boxes. He told them about the peanuts. Saba clapped her hands and said her brother was a businessman now. Zainab smiled, but her eyes were wet. She looked at her son, and she saw his father in him. Bashir had been the same way. When life knocked him down, he always found a way to get back up. The same blood ran in Arif's body. Arif told them his plan. He would keep roasting and selling peanuts every day. He would save the profit and slowly buy more peanuts to make more cones. He would try different flavors. He would build up his customers. It was a small start, but every big thing starts small. A river starts as a tiny stream in the mountains. A tree starts as a seed in the dirt. And a business starts with one boy, some peanuts, and a table made of old boxes. His mother listened and nodded. Then she said something that Arif did not expect. She said she would help. She said she could roast the peanuts at home while Arif sold them at the market. That way, Arif could focus on selling, and she could make sure there were always fresh peanuts ready. Arif looked at his mother and felt a wave of love so strong that it almost knocked him over. This woman had lost her husband. She worked all day washing clothes until her hands bled. And here she was, offering to do even more work so that her son could have a chance. He said yes. From the next day, they would work together. Zainab would roast the peanuts in the morning, before she went to wash clothes. Arif would take them to the market and sell them. In the evening they would count the money together and plan for the next day. It was a family business, small and simple, but it was theirs. That night, Arif sat on the steps outside his house and looked at the stars. The cold wind blew against his face, but he did not mind. For the first time since Haji Noor's shop closed, he did not feel scared. He felt something else instead. He felt ready. Ready for whatever came next. The storm had come and it had shaken him, but he was still standing. And now he was going to start building something, one cone of peanuts at a time. The peanut business grew slowly, but it grew. The first week, Arif sold about 15 cones a day. The second week, he sold 20. By the third week, he was selling 25 to 30 cones every day. People in the market started to know him. They called him the Peanut Boy. Some of them laughed when they said it. But Arif did not mind. Let them laugh. He was making money. Not a lot of money, but more than he had made carrying sacks and cleaning fish. The secret to his success was simple. He made good peanuts, and he treated every customer with respect. He always smiled. He always said thank you. He always gave a few extra peanuts in each cone. People noticed these things. They came back again and again. Some of them brought their friends. A bus driver who stopped at the market every morning became one of his best customers. He bought 5 cones every day, 3 for himself and 2 for his helper. He told Arif that his peanuts were the best he had ever tasted. Arif thanked him and gave him an extra cone for free. The bus driver never forgot that. He told everyone on his bus route about the peanut boy at the market. Arif also started trying new things. He did not just sell plain salted peanuts anymore. He made different flavors. He made some with lemon and salt. He made some with black pepper and a little sugar. He made some with a mix of spices that his mother used to make. That one became the most popular. People said it tasted like nothing they had ever had before. It was spicy and sweet and sour all at the same time. Arif called it the special mix. He charged a little more for the special mix cones, and people were happy to pay. His mother Zainab was a big part of the success. She woke up every morning at 4 o'clock and started roasting peanuts. She had a system now. She used 3 pans at the same time over the fire. One for plain salted, one for lemon and salt, one for the special mix. By the time Arif woke up at 5, the peanuts were ready and packed in the cloth bag. She handed him the bag and a cup of tea, and he was out the door before the sun came up. Saba helped too. In the evenings after she finished her homework, she would roll the newspaper cones. She was very good at it. She could make a perfect cone in a few seconds. She sat on the floor with a pile of old newspapers and folded them one by one. She made them all the same size, so that every customer got the same amount of peanuts. She was precise and careful. Those were the same qualities that made her the best student in her class. 1 month after Arif started selling peanuts, something happened that changed things again. It was a cold Thursday morning. Arif was at his corner, setting up his boxes, when a man walked up to him. The man was wearing clean clothes and a warm jacket. He had a short beard and glasses. He did not look like the regular market people. He looked like someone from the city. He stood in front of Arif's little stall and looked at the cones of peanuts. He asked for 1 cone of the special mix. Arif gave it to him. The man ate a few peanuts slowly. He chewed them carefully like he was thinking about something. Then he ate a few more. Then he looked at Arif and asked him who made these peanuts. Arif said he and his mother made them. The man asked what spices they used. Arif hesitated. The spice mix was his mother's recipe. He did not want to give it away. He said it was a family secret. The man smiled and said he understood. The man introduced himself. His name was Khalid. He owned a small food shop in the city. He sold snacks and dry fruits and packaged food. He said he was at the market that day to buy some raw spices, but now he was more interested in Arif's peanuts. He said the flavor was unique. He said he had never tasted anything like it. He asked Arif if he would be willing to make a big batch of the special mixed peanuts and sell them to him. Khalid said he could package them in his shop and sell them to his city customers. Arif felt his heart beating fast. This was not a customer buying one cone. This was a businessman offering a real deal. He tried to stay calm. He asked Khalid how many peanuts he would want. Khalid said he would start with 10 kilos. If they sold well, he would order more. He named a price per kilo. Arif did the math quickly in his head. The price was fair. More than fair. If you sold 10 kilos to Khalid, he would make as much money as he made in 2 weeks at the market. He told Khalid he needed to talk to his mother first. Khalid said that was fine. He gave Arif his phone number written on a piece of paper, and said to call him within 2 days. Then he bought 3 more cones of the special mix and walked away. Arif could not focus for the rest of the day. His mind was racing. He sold his peanuts, but he was thinking about Khalid the whole time. Was this real? Was this man serious? Could this be the beginning of something bigger? He tried not to get too excited. He had learned that life could take things away as quickly as it gave them. But he could not stop the hope from growing inside him. That evening, he told his mother and Saba about Khalid. Saba jumped up and down with excitement. She said this was it. This was the big chance they had been waiting for. Zainab was more careful. She asked questions. How did they know this man was honest? What if he took the peanuts and did not pay? What if he stole their recipe? These were smart questions. Arif had not thought about all of them. They talked for a long time that night. In the end, they decided that Arif would call Khalid and agree to the deal, but with conditions. He would ask for half the payment in advance, before making the peanuts. He would deliver the peanuts himself to Khalid's shop, so he could see where they would be sold. And he would not share the recipe. Khalid would buy the finished product only. If he wanted more, he would have to keep buying from Arif. The next morning, Arif went to the public phone booth near the mosque and called Khalid. Khalid answered on the second ring. Arif told him the conditions in a clear and steady voice. His hands were shaking, but his voice was not. Khalid listened, and then he laughed. But it was not a mean laugh. It was the laugh of a man who was impressed. He said Arif talked like a real businessman. He said he agreed to all the conditions. He said Arif should come to the city on Saturday with the peanuts. Arif hung up the phone and stood there for a moment. The morning sun was coming through the dirty glass of the phone booth. It hit his face and it felt warm. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he opened his eyes and walked home fast. They had work to do. The next 2 days were the busiest days the family had ever known. Zainab roasted peanuts from before dawn until late at night. She went through bag after bag of raw peanuts. She mixed the spices with extra care, making sure every batch tasted exactly the same. Arif helped her whenever he was not at the market. He kept the fire going. He stirred the pans. He packed the finished peanuts into clean cloth bags that his mother had stitched from old sheets. Saba helped too. She stayed up late, even though she had school the next day. She weighed the peanuts on a small kitchen scale to make sure each bag was exactly 1 kilo. She was exact about it, not 1 gram more, not 1 gram less. She wrote the weight on each bag with a marker. Arif looked at his little sister and felt proud. She was only 12, but she worked like someone much older. By Friday night, they had 10 kilos of special mixed peanuts ready. The bags were lined up on the kitchen floor. Zainab looked at them, and then she looked at her children. The kitchen smelled like roasted peanuts and spices. All 3 of them were tired. Zainab's hands were red and sore from the work. Arif's eyes were burning from the smoke of the fire. Saba had ink from the marker on her fingers. but they were all smiling. They had done it together. Whatever happened next, they had done this together. Arif set his alarm for 4 in the morning. He needed to catch the first bus to the city. The ride was 2 hours long. He had never been to the city alone before. He felt nervous, but he also felt something else. He felt like he was stepping through a door into a new room. He did not know what was inside that room yet, but he knew he was ready to find out. He lay down on his mattress and pulled the thin blanket over his body. Outside the wind was blowing hard. Winter was fully here now. But inside the small house, the air was warm. It was warm from the fire, and the cooking, and the work, and the love of 3 people who would do anything for each other. Arif woke up before the alarm went off. His body knew it was time. The house was dark and cold. He could see his breath in the air when he exhaled. He got up quietly and washed his face with the icy water from the bucket. He put on his best shirt. It was the blue one. His mother had washed and ironed it the night before. It still had small holes near the bottom, but it was clean and it looked decent. He combed his hair for the first time in weeks. He looked at himself in the small, cracked mirror on the wall. He saw a thin boy with dark, serious eyes. He did not look like a businessman. He looked like a kid. But he told himself that what he looked like did not matter. What mattered was what he carried with him. 10 kilos of the best peanuts anyone had ever tasted. That was his weapon. That was his proof. His mother was already awake. She had made tea and 2 thick rotis with a little bit of butter. She said the city was far, and he would need his strength. Arif sat down and ate. The roti was warm, and the butter was salty, and it tasted like the best meal he had ever had. Zainab sat across from him and watched him eat. She did not eat anything herself. She said she was not hungry. Arif knew she was lying. She was always hungry. She just always made sure her children ate first. When he finished eating, she gave him the cloth bag with the 10 kilos of peanuts. It was heavy. She also gave him a small amount of money for the bus fare. Then she held his face in her rough, cracked hands and looked into his eyes. She told him to be careful. She told him to watch his money and his bag. She told him that no matter what happened, she was proud of him. Then she kissed his forehead and let him go. Saba was standing at the door. She had woken up to say goodbye, even though it was still dark outside. She was wrapped in an old shawl, and her eyes were still sleepy. She gave Arif a small piece of paper. He opened it and saw that she had written a prayer on it in her neat handwriting. She told him to keep it in his pocket. She said it would bring him good luck. Arif smiled and put the paper in his shirt pocket close to his heart. Then he walked out into the cold, dark morning. The bus stop was a 15-minute walk from his house. When he got there, a few people were already waiting. They were workers, going to the city for their jobs. Men with lunchboxes and tired faces. The bus arrived 10 minutes late. It was an old bus, with cracked windows and torn seats. It made loud noises when it moved, like it was in pain. Arif got on and found a seat near the back. He put the heavy bag of peanuts on his lap and held it tight. The bus started moving, and the town slowly disappeared behind him. The ride to the city took 2.5 hours. The road was bumpy and full of holes. The bus shook and rattled the whole way. Arif looked out the window and watched the land change. The small fields and mud houses of the countryside gave way to bigger buildings and wider roads. He saw factories with tall chimneys. He saw trucks carrying goods in every direction. He saw billboards with pictures of things he could not afford. The city was getting closer. When the bus finally stopped at the city terminal, Arif stepped out and stood still for a moment. The city was loud, so loud. Horns and engines and voices and music all mixed together in a wall of sound. People moved fast. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Nobody looked at anyone else. They just kept moving like ants in a line. Arif felt small, smaller than he had ever felt. In his town he knew every street and every face. Here he knew nothing and nobody. He took out the piece of paper that Khalid had given him with the address of the shop. He asked a man at a tea stall how to get there. The man pointed down a road and told him to take a rickshaw. Arif looked at his money. The rickshaw would cost a lot. He decided to walk instead. It took him 40 minutes. His shoulders ached from carrying the heavy bag. Sweat was running down his back despite the cold air. But he kept walking. He kept putting one foot in front of the other. That was something he was very good at. He found the shop on a busy street. It was a proper shop, with glass windows and a sign above the door. Inside there were shelves full of packaged snacks and dry fruits, and boxes of sweets. It was clean and bright. 2 customers were inside looking at the products. Behind the counter sat Khalid. He looked up when Arif walked in, and he smiled. He came around the counter and shook Arif's hand. He said he had been waiting. Arif put the bag on the counter. Khalid opened one of the bags and took out a handful of peanuts. He ate one slowly. Then he nodded. He said the taste was even better than what he had tried at the market. He said these would sell very well in his shop. He called over a young man who worked for him and told him to put the peanuts into small, clear plastic packets. Each packet would be sealed and labeled with a sticker. Khalid showed Arif a sample sticker he had already prepared. It said, "Special Mix Roasted Peanuts," and it had a small drawing of a peanut on it. It looked professional. Arif stared at the sticker and felt something he could not describe. His peanuts were going to be in a real shop with a real label. It did not feel real. Khalid counted out the rest of the payment. He had already given half in advance through a man he knew in Arif's town. Now he counted out the second half and put it on the counter. Arif picked up the money and counted it carefully. It was all there. He put it deep in his pocket and buttoned the pocket shut. This money was more than he had ever held in his hands at one time. It was more than his mother made in a month washing clothes. Then Khalid said something that Arif was not expecting. He said he wanted to talk about the future. He said he believed these peanuts could sell in big numbers. He said the city had millions of people and everyone liked snacks. He said if Arif could supply him with 50 kilos a week, he would buy them all. He said the price would stay the same, 50 kilos a week. Arif did the math in his head, and he felt dizzy. That kind of money would change everything. It would change their whole life. But Arif did not say yes right away. He thought about it. 50 kilos was a lot. His mother could not roast 50 kilos alone. They would need more raw peanuts, more fuel for the fire, more bags, more spices. They might need help, another person to do the roasting. It was a big step, a step that could go very right or very wrong. He told Khalid that he needed to think about it. He said he would give an answer in 1 week. Khalid smiled again and said that was fine. He said Arif was smart to think before jumping. He said most boys his age would have said yes without thinking. Arif shook his hand and thanked him. Then he picked up his empty cloth bag and walked out of the shop. The walk back to the bus terminal felt different from the walk to the shop. On the way there he had been nervous and scared. On the way back he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like the world was opening up in front of him. Like a door that had been locked was now open just a crack, and light was coming through. He got on the bus and sat by the window. As the bus moved out of the city and back towards the countryside, Arif watched the land change again. The buildings got smaller, the roads got narrower, the noise got quieter, and his thoughts got clearer. He thought about his father. He wondered what Bashir would say if he could see his son now. Making deals with shopkeepers, trying to build something out of nothing. He liked to think his father would be proud. He liked to think his father was watching from somewhere and smiling. He thought about Saba, her dream of becoming a doctor. For the first time, that dream did not feel impossible. If the business with Khalid worked out, there would be real money coming in. Money for school fees, money for books, money for the things that Saba would need to go to college. It was still far away, but the road to get there did not look as dark as it used to. He thought about his mother, her cracked hands and tired eyes, and the way she always said she was not hungry so her children could eat more. He wanted to give her rest. He wanted to give her a life where she did not have to wash other people's clothes until her hands bled. That was his deepest wish, deeper even than his own dreams. The bus reached his town in the late afternoon. The sun was low and orange, and it painted everything in warm light. He got off the bus and walked home. When he reached the house, he saw Saba sitting outside on the steps waiting for him. The moment she saw him, she jumped up and ran to him. She asked him how it went. He smiled and pulled out the money from his pocket and showed it to her. Saba's eyes went wide. She grabbed his arm and pulled him inside. Zainab was in the kitchen. She turned around when Arif walked in. He put the money on the small table in front of her. She looked at the money. She looked at her son. And then she did something she had not done in a very long time. She sat down on the kitchen floor, and she cried. But these were not sad tears. These were the tears of a mother who had carried a heavy load for 5 years and was finally seeing a little bit of light. Arif sat down next to her and put his arm around her shoulders. Saba sat on the other side and held her mother's hand. The three of them sat there on the kitchen floor together. Nobody said a word. The evening light came through the small window and touched their faces. Outside the wind was cold, but inside that kitchen the whole world was warm. There was a boy named Arif who lived in a small town near the river. The town did not have a proper name on any big map. People just called it the town by the river. It had narrow streets made of dirt and stone. Dogs slept in the shade of old walls. Children ran barefoot through the lanes, and the sound of the river was always there, quiet and steady, like the breathing of the earth itself. Arif was 17 years old. He was thin and tall with dark eyes and rough hands. His skin was brown from the sun, and his hair was always messy because he never had time to comb it properly. He wore the same 2 shirts every week. One was blue and one was gray. Both had small holes near the edges, but he did not care. Clothes were not important to him. What was important was the money he brought home every evening. He lived with his mother Zainab and his younger sister Saba in a house at the end of the lane. The house was small. It had 2 rooms and a kitchen that was really just a corner with a stove and some pots. The walls were made of old bricks, and the plaster was falling off in many places. The roof was made of tin sheets, and when it rained, the noise was so loud that they could not hear each other talk. In winter the house was cold, and in summer it was hot. But it was their home, and they loved it, because it was the only thing they had. Arif's father had been a truck driver. His name was Bashir. He was a big man with strong arms and a loud laugh. Arif remembered how his father would come home after being away for many days. He would pick up Arif and throw him in the air and catch him again. Arif would scream with joy, and his mother would shout at Bashir to be careful. Those were good days. Those were the days when the house felt full and warm, even in the coldest winter. But 5 years ago, everything changed. Bashir was driving his truck through the mountains at night. The road was narrow and wet from the rain. Nobody knew exactly what happened. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe the brakes failed. Maybe the road was too slippery. All they knew was that the truck went off the edge of the road and fell down into the valley below. Some villagers found the truck the next morning. It was broken into pieces. Bashir was still inside. He was gone. When the news came to their house, Zainab did not believe it at first. She kept saying there was a mistake. She kept saying Bashir was strong and nothing could happen to him. But then the men from the trucking company came with Bashir's belongings. His old watch, his identity card, his prayer beads. And then Zainab understood. She fell to the ground, and she screamed. She screamed so loudly that the neighbors came running. The women held her, and the men stood outside with their heads down. Little Saba was only 7 years old then. She did not fully understand what had happened. She kept asking where her father was. Arif was 12. He understood. He sat in the corner of the room, and he did not cry. He just sat there and looked at the wall. Something inside him changed that day. The boy in him started to die, and the man in him started to wake up. The trucking company gave them a small amount of money. They said it was for the family, but it was not enough. It was never enough. The money lasted for a few months, and then it was gone. Zainab had no education and no skills except her strong hands and her willingness to work. She started going to the big houses in the town and asking if they needed someone to wash their clothes. Some women were kind and gave her work. Others looked at her like she was dirt and shut the door in her face. But Zainab did not give up. She found enough houses to keep them alive. She washed clothes from morning to evening. She scrubbed and rinsed and wrung out heavy wet sheets until her hands cracked and bled. She put oil on them at night and went back to work the next morning. Arif tried to help. He was only 12, but he wanted to do something. He started going to the market after school and helping the shopkeepers. He carried things, he swept floors, he ran errands. Sometimes they gave him a few coins, and sometimes they gave him nothing. But he kept going. When he turned 15, he stopped going to school. His mother cried when he told her. She said his father would not have wanted this. She said education was important. Arif said he knew all of that, but they needed money now, not later. He said Saba was the smart one in the family, and they should save the money for her school. His mother argued, but in the end, she knew he was right. There was not enough money for both children to go to school. That was when Arif found the job at Haji Noor's tea shop. Haji Noor was an old man with a white beard and kind eyes. He had run the tea shop near the bus stop for 30 years. Every morning, the bus stop was full of people going to the city for work. They needed tea and bread before the long ride. Haji Noor made the best tea in town. He used real milk and cardamom and just the right amount of sugar. People said his tea could wake up a dead man. Haji Noor liked Arif from the first day. He saw that Arif was honest and hard-working. He saw that Arif did not waste time talking or sitting around. He gave Arif the job of making tea and serving customers in the morning rush. Arif learned quickly. He learned how to boil the milk without burning it. He learned how to pour tea from a height so that it got a nice froth on top. He learned how to handle the morning crowd when everyone was in a hurry and everyone wanted their tea first. The pay was small, but it was regular. Every Thursday evening, Haji Noor would count out the money and give it to Arif. Arif would hold the notes tightly in his hand and walk home fast. He would give the money to his mother, and she would count it and put it in a tin box that she kept under her bed. That tin box was their bank. It held everything they had in the world. Life was hard, but it had a rhythm. Arif woke up early, worked at the shop, came home in the evening, ate dinner with his family, and went to sleep. Saba went to school and came home with stories about what she had learned. She was the best student in her class. Her teacher told Zainab that Saba had a gift. She said Saba could go far if she got the chance. Zainab smiled when she heard this, but inside her heart ached, because she did not know how she would give Saba that chance. At night, when the house was quiet and Saba was asleep, Arif would sometimes sit outside on the steps and look up at the sky. The stars were bright in their town because there were no big lights to hide them. He would think about his father. He would think about all the things he wanted to give his mother and sister. A better house, good food, new clothes, a chance for Saba to go to a good school, and then to a medical college. These thoughts were heavy and light at the same time. Heavy because they seemed so far away. Light because they gave him a reason to wake up the next morning and do it all again. He did not know that everything was about to change. He did not know that the steady rhythm of his life was going to break. He did not know that the next few weeks would test him in ways he had never been tested before. But that is how life works. It does not send a warning before it sends a storm. And Arif's storm was already on its way.